Agencies Drinking Beer is brought to you by Proposify, software that helps you deliver beautiful proposals in the cloud and close more deals.
Welcome to the 55th episode of Agencies Drinking Beer. On today's show, we're talking to Mike Arnesen from UpBuild, based out of Portland, Oregon, and he's going to tell us about the 3 criteria they use to validate a client and how they've democratized the process. I like that interview with Mike we had last week, which listeners are about to hear. He's an unapologetic hipster. You know,
It's true.
he's got the earplugs, or just pictures on his site. He's vegan. He lives in Portland, Oregon. So I don't really have anything great to talk about today, but man, I messed up my thumb. Did you see that?
Oh, I didn't see that today.
Big chunk taken out of my thumb.
What'd you do?
I decided yesterday, I got some groceries. It was a Sunday, and I wanted to just cook up a storm. I made like a bunch of healthy food for lunches and suppers, so I don't have to cook during the week. And I bought a really shitty can opener, apparently, because it wouldn't open. And so I had stuff on the stove. I had too many things going on. I never had any experience working like in a restaurant or anything, so I got greedy. I got over ambitious, and I tried to have too many, dishes on the go.
Multitasking in the kitchen is dangerous.
Yeah. And I was getting stressed because like my onions and stuff were sauteing, and I was trying to open up the can of, tomato stuff really quick, and it just wasn't working. I was getting really frustrated, sweaty. And so then just sort of out of frustration, like I punched the can like to try to open it, and it split open my hand, and then and there was blood everywhere, and there was tomato sauce everywhere because it spurted up and hit me. Like, it just coated me in tomato sauce and, like, the kitchen, and I didn't know what was blood and what was tomato sauce.
A vampire's wet dream.
Yeah. I had there was like a vein in my forehead just pulsating. I was so mad.
Were you by yourself?
Yeah, I was by myself.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was my Sunday. It was my relaxing Sunday evening.
Nice. Didn't need stitches, though. It's not that bad.
I don't think so, yeah.
Yeah, you get what you pay for in life, though. You have to have a good can opener.
Yeah, I have nothing else really of interest to say.
We have to make this quick anyhow because we have an exciting new video coming out. The boys are ready to come in here and record.
That's right. So we are outsourcing the production of our video. We're doing a new explainer video. It's going to be on our homepage and might use it for YouTube ads and stuff. But we're actually going live action. We're not doing the animated, kind of almost cliche now as most people do animated explainer videos. We're actually going to have actors, and it's going to be, hopefully pretty polished. So we got the experts to do it. So.
Well, let's get some people sending some questions in so, our intros can be really, really interesting.
No, I don't know. Yeah, no questions. So anyway, here we are. Well, I don't want to say it really loud because there's people outside that I don't know very well.
Come on, everybody else listens.
Okay.
To it. Come on.
All right. So now enjoy the interview coming up with Mike Arnesen. I'd like to welcome Mike Arnesen on the show today. Mike is the founder and CEO of UpBuild, a technical marketing agency based out of Portland, Oregon. UpBuild touts itself as shamelessly idealistic, and Mike wants to optimize everything. We're going to talk about that and more on today's show. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, thank you for having me. Happy to be on the podcast.
Yeah, awesome. Tons of stuff to talk about. So before we get into kind of like what I described in the intro, I have to challenge you on something, which is I read in your bio you've seen Lord of the Rings more than anyone else, and I don't think that's true.
Oh, that does sound like a weighty challenge. Those are fighting words.
Are they? How many times have you seen it?
I actually stopped counting after 100.
Oh, geez, that's a lot.
There was a phase where, for some reason, like Lord of the Rings was the thing that would get me pumped up for a conference. So I'd go across the country, get a hotel room to prepare for my conference and watch the trilogy. And then I'd suddenly be ready to go. I actually, historically in my past, struggled with stage fright and fear of public speaking kind of stuff. And I'd if I watched that, I'm like, Aragorn gave that amazing speech. Like, how can I do anything less? So that was like my pump up kind of ritual for a while there. So kind of artificially inflated view count.
I think we're going to have to work in that scene in the podcast.
Hold your ground! Hold your ground! Sons of Gondor! Of Rohan! My brothers! I see in your eyes the same fear that would take the heart of me. A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day. An hour of wolves and shattered shields when the age of men comes crashing down. But it is not this day. This day we fight. By all that you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand, men of the West!
All right,
I don't
guys.
even know where that says that. Which bio has that? I must. I totally forget where I wrote that.
Oh, I don't remember. I just Googled you and
That's
was
great.
looking at everything. So, I think it might have been one of the conferences that you spoke at. Might have had that in your bio. I can't remember.
That's possible that they probably put that up there because I tend to reference Lord of the Rings a lot when I go to conferences.
Yeah. So speaking of which, you have spoken at a lot of conferences on the topic of search optimization, content analytics. Can you kind of tell us like some of the places that you spoke at? You said you actually had a bit of stage fright in the past. So, I mean, how did all this speaking come about?
Yeah, so it's definitely a long and kind of maybe interesting story. I'm not sure. I can never tell. It's always interesting to me. But I mean, my whole life, I've just been a geek for stuff. And when I latch onto something, I just get really into it. And we can get more into this too later if you'd like to hear about my background. But like, long story short, like I got a degree in history out of college, had no idea what I wanted to do with my career or my life for that matter, and discovered this search engine optimization thing by chance. Realized it was something that I really was interested in and just like went into it like head first and dedicated way more time probably than anyone should actually realistically want to dedicate to something and just got super geeked out about it. And at one point I was just talking with an industry colleague who had just kind of gotten into public speaking themselves and going to conferences, and they're like, you know what, it was a great thing for my career. It opened up all these opportunities for me to like meet people, to get to share your ideas. And it was also very helpful like professionally to like learn how to articulate your ideas and explore these topics in greater depth than you get to kind of do in your day-to-day when like there's not much structure around things. And he was like, you know what I did? It was I went and started at I went to local WordPress meetups and user groups and like talked to like bloggers that were like having a meetup on blogger.com and be like, hey, can I give an SEO presentation? And then from there, like, keep practicing, and then eventually like pitch a conference. So this guy basically told me his whole roadmap to success. And I was like, that sounds great. Let me try that. And so the first couple times I was talking at, a group of bloggers here in Portland, Oregon. And I was super, super nervous. I probably stumbled through a lot of the slides and it was just not super pretty. But I kept doing that. And then eventually I was like, you know what, let me pitch this conference in New York. So I did that, and the rest is history. That, for what it's worth, that whole presentation at New York for my first, the conference series is called SMX, Search Marketing Expo. So the whole thing was Lord of the Rings themed. So that was great visual fodder for my slides. Nice. And then from there, that kind of like, I think I lucked into having this reputation as like, oh, there's the guy that's like really geeked out about SEO, and he loves Lord of the Rings. So that was like, that kind of became my brand by accident.
Perfect marriage.
Then it snowballed and ended up getting invitations to speaking events and kind of going after bigger and bigger things, and something I found that I really enjoy is just like if you talk to me in a room, I'm hanging out with my wife and like a couple of our friends, like I'll just kind of sit around and take everything in and like let others lead the conversation, but like hey, like, let's talk about SEO, like, I can go on for the rest of the night and keep everybody up until like 4 a.m.
That's a good problem to have. So
Yeah.
especially when you have clients who need that, if you did some client work for Sauron and Google existed, I mean, he would have found the ring just like that. There would have been no wait, right?
Yeah, I don't think I could have lived with myself.
So when you talk about technical marketing, so UpBuild is your agency, which you started, and why do you describe it as a technical marketing agency?
Yeah, it's it's an interesting kind of concept that it's not actually new. I learned after I kind of started branding ourselves that way, that like people talk about it in different contexts as well. But the kind of background of that is, I found over the years that my passion always lied in kind of taking an existing website that had strengths of its own and optimizing it, starting from the technical side and kind of working up to like the user-facing content and the user experience and stuff like that when needed. Where I really never, it really just never spoke to me was like the kind of old school side of SEO that you'll commonly hear about, which is like link building and getting sites placed on directories and like paying people to blog about you. That was something I think like both professionally and kind of ethically never spoke to what I was interested in. So I kind of developed the term technical marketing almost as a way to justify like why I don't do that stuff. I was like, I want to work on the technical side of your website, optimize the heck out of it, and make it a really fine-tuned SEO and marketing machine. And that's what we're going to specialize in. And it also kind of harkened back to my first job where I ever had SEO in my title. Is they actually told me through the hiring process, like, hey, here's why we're hiring you. It's because you have a background in development and you get marketing. And we really need somebody like that in our organization. We need somebody who can talk to a marketing team, to a CMO, and be able to break things down in terms they understand and like kind of understand what they care about, but also be able to talk to the development team. Because like right now, we have developers and we have marketing people, and like they don't know how to talk and go back and forth. And prior to getting into SEO, I had done PHP programming. I worked at a small shop that was trying to develop their own content management system in-house. So like I had to learn how to interact with developers and like not make them mad when you're like, hey, you need to change this on the website for marketing reasons. And usually, like, that's the most offensive thing you can say to a developer. Like, hey, change your software because it doesn't work for marketing. They're like, hey, screw off, buddy. So
marketing is actually a dirty word to a lot of developers. I think our CTO calls it spamming. Marketing is just spamming.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what it boils down to, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I kind of found out that I was pretty decent at doing that, at bridging the gap between those two kind of camps and those two skill sets and bringing it together. And so I carried that throughout my career. And then when I founded my own company, I said, you know what? Like, I'm great at this. And of course, I frequently hear that like a company is built in the image of its founder. So that just kind of became what we did, is like, that's what I was good at. And that's the skill set that I was able to bring to the table for clients. And so we just follow that model, and it's worked out really well for us.
Cool. Do you ever get tempted? I think you're going to roll your eyes, but technical marketing sounds a lot like that other word, growth hacking or growth hackers. Is there a difference to you between the two, or do you think there's some overlap?
Yeah, technical marketing actually gets results. No, you know what? It is a kind of a more buzzword type of thing, and we of course throw that term around a lot internally here at UpBuild and talk about it in clients in the sales process. But then it always kind of does get back to the kind of core things that a client is looking for. And so typically, like they do come to us for SEO needs. They'll come to us for web analytics implementation. Like they want to understand, with greater specificity and kind of granularity what people are doing on their sites, how they're interacting with things, and then of course how to improve it. So we also do conversion rate optimization. So it usually comes back to those things. Technical marketing is kind of like just a good way to have a segue into like what we do and why we do these specific things. So we kind of use it as a nice wrapper for the whole package, but definitely don't try to put too much emphasis on it long term.
Yeah. So when you talk a lot about optimizing everything, what do you mean by that? And is there a problem where people just aren't optimizing enough?
Yeah, I definitely think that, as an industry, it's been awesome to see just digital marketers in general start to get, really into, the process optimization. Like, being a data-driven company, it's kind of like a sexy thing right now. Like, people want to be able to say that like they're actually using, data and testing their hypotheses. All that stuff is playing into how they make decisions as an organization. So that's really cool to see. But at the same time, I think the present reality is very much that people aren't exactly walking the walk as much as they talk the talk. So pretty much, of course, UpBuild we've been around for about a year and a half, but at this point, we've never seen a site where we came in and we're like, okay, yeah, you guys are on top of it. Our work here is done. There's just always so much to do. And even things like, we try not to say like, hey, we're an SEO only agency. Like that's just one of the many things we do. But like that's something that even with a B2B startup that's had like 3 series like Series C funding, and they really should have been optimized like years ago. They don't have page titles on their site or something for something like that, or like they're like, oh well, we have analytics on our site, but nobody looks at it and nobody really knows where to start when we're trying to evaluate things. It's like, yeah, well, we know we have a bunch of leads in Marketo, and that's kind of what our CMO cares about. So we'll kind of talk about, okay, like let's go back to square one and make sure that you have this great reputation. You have people talking about your site. You have this kind of I always refer to it as raw power behind your site in terms of how search engines are understanding who you are, and they see that there's links pointing to your site, and they see that there's people talking about you on social media. So they know that what you're doing it means something, it's valuable, but through optimizing it and making sure that the site's going to be accessible, that you're demonstrating rather than just saying like, hey, rank us for proposal software, like actually demonstrating through our actions on site, like that is what our website is about, and that's what we deserve to rank for. That makes a huge difference and really allows you to leverage that existing raw authority to get great results. And then of course, like making sure that we're not just saying, okay, well, leads at the end of the day, that's all we care about. Let's measure the points between initial contact with your website to ultimately filling out a lead gen form. Like, see what people are doing along the way. What little micro steps are they taking, so we can optimize that whole process. I mean, not everybody has as clear of a defined funnel as like an e-commerce site where it's like, okay, well, they added something to their cart and then they went to their shipping details and their billing details and then they checked out. Like, everybody has at least probably one or more funnels on their site, and we need to be able to track that so that we can optimize that by looking at the data and seeing how people are actually playing around with things.
So, I mean, speaking of leads, let's talk about how you generate them for your agency, and specifically how you vet them. One thing that you had told me about earlier was that you guys actually vote on clients, whether or not you're going to take on a client, which is kind of interesting. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. And it's an interesting thing that I decided that I wanted to do when I made the choice to found my own company is, I think anyone who, and this is probably more prevalent than other kind of specialties that I can think of, but like within SEO, I mean, it has this reputation, like everyone's familiar with like black hat SEO, and like even people like within Proposify, they're like, marketing is spam, like don't even get started on SEO. Like that has probably the worst reputation of anything, really. But there are people that do it ethically and who do it well. So it's a tool that can absolutely be used for good. But like, just by being an SEO specialist and working for an agency, I don't think it's an overgeneralization to say that everybody has probably touched an account that they were like not super stoked to work on or like not comfortable working on. And this idea actually stems from one specific interaction I had with someone on my team prior to founding UpBuild. I was at a different company where I was just the director of the agency. And we were working on a client that was, their whole objective was to kind of give low interest loans on land, people who wanted to buy land. And they had very aggressive terminology in how they described people and like how they wanted to like, basically bring in people who they considered dreamers who couldn't afford to get a loan, but like they were going to put them into like, getting a loan and show them how easy it was. And like, here's our like crazy interest rate. And it just didn't really sound like the most ethical business for someone who is of that mindset and like really cares about that kind of stuff. And so somebody on my team actually came to me and said like, I'm really not comfortable working on this account. And I just wanted to let you know, I wanted to like surface my concerns. Like, I'm going to work on this. Like, this is my job. I'm not going to like tell you I'm not going to work on it. But as you know, that person's manager at the time, like, it really bummed me out to hear that, like, that we were basically asking somebody to do something they weren't comfortable doing. And so it was kind of an eye opener for me. And at the time, of course, I wasn't the person making those decisions. Like, I couldn't say like, hey, we don't want to work with this client. And at that point had no feedback in the sales process. So when I started my own agency, I was like, you know what, I would love to, if possible, like, not have that be an issue again. And also, I mean, this is an outgrowth of how UpBuild started, which was really just me trying my hand at consulting. I left my last job and I said, you know what, I'm going to take 3 months and see if I can do consulting on my own and just work on clients that I personally want to work on. Like, I have enough cash, cash in the savings account to like make it so that I don't have to go and scramble for clients. Like, I can take my time and hopefully be able to take my pick and like pick 2 clients that I really want to work with. And so I kind of did that. And then, you know, when it became apparent after the first couple of months that like, this is going to be something that gets bigger than myself, I said, okay, let me codify these ideas that I kind of used as my guiding light when I was kind of starting on my own. And one of them was like being very intentional about the clients that I took on. So as I got, more employees and more clients, of course, we started this process where we kind of did it pretty informally at first, but now it's a very formalized process where we vote on our clients before we take them on. And I think, in terms of like investment, if you want to talk about, financial and kind of long-term investment value, I think it's a great move to make because it's in my best interest to make sure that the people on my team who are my employees, like, I want to minimize employee turnover. That's something that like, is frequent. It's almost assumed that in an agency setting, like, you're just going to have people that get burnt out and they leave, they go in-house or they go to a different agency that hopefully is going to treat them better. And it's in our best interest to minimize that. And so it's a great call to like make sure that everyone on the team is stoked about who we're working with. And also, go for it.
Sorry to cut you off there. I was going to say, it's it's awesome that you have those values and you as you said, kind of codify them into your corporate culture, right? There's other companies we've talked to who, I think it was about last year, we talked to a company called Organic SEO, and they only work with what they call purpose-driven companies. So, ones that are sort of benefiting humanity in some way, whether that's environmentally or socially. And they had kind of laid out their values and made sure they hired people who shared the similar values. So it sounds like you're kind of doing a similar thing where I think you go a step further is that you're actually like democratizing it within the company. That, do you actually bring, so let's say you've got a client that you want to work with, you're pretty stoked, maybe you've done a proposal. I don't know at what stage, I'd like to know that, but like at what stage do you go, okay, team, here's the client, we seem like we're a good fit, let's put it to a vote. Like, is it actually that formalized?
Yeah, it's actually formalized, maybe even a little more than that. So the way that our sales process looks generally is, we'll get a new lead in. I'll have a couple email conversations with them. We'll send them some materials on the organization, of course, try to get a sense of kind of what their core needs are, if there's kind of a sense of urgency behind the project. Hop on a phone call with them, really pick their brain for an hour or two. And then at that point, once I have as much information as I can, and I can maybe hopefully like look behind the curtain and see like their analytics account and kind of poke around a little bit, I'll write up a synopsis of like, okay, here's who this client is. Here's what I think the opportunity is for us to do good work for them. Like, do I personally feel like it's going to be a good fit? And then lay out like, okay, here are upsides that we would have working with this client. Like, here's why we might want to go out of our way to work with these guys. And then 2, here's potential downside. Like, are they hiring an SEO company, but like they don't have any development resources and like our recommendations are just going to sit on the table? Or like, did I get a weird sense that like maybe they don't have the most positive culture and we're going to be getting into something that's going to be like more of a hairy client relationship? I'll lay all that stuff out and send that. I actually use Google Forms. We send out a form to the team so they can vote anonymously. So they'll see all that information and they get to vote on 3 main criteria, scale of 1 to 5. So what we do is we vote on alignment, effectiveness, and interest. So alignment is basically, we have these very specific core values that we list on our website, and we say, do we think that we will be able to adhere to our core values while working on this client? And so we kind of have those in place, so we can kind of say, like, if we don't think this is like a great cultural or ethical fit, let's make sure we flag this up front. Effectiveness is, we have them rate how effective do you think we'll be able to be on this account? Can we actually make a difference for them? And then interest also, like, I want to know if people are personally interested in like the subject matter of this site or the specific business. Like, are they actually interested themselves in working on that client? So if we
That's so important, hey?
Yeah. Oh, totally. And that's like, that makes, it's exponentially better work is going to come out of that person if they're interested in that and they want to like know more about it, or they would love to see that client actually rank number one in Google. Like, you can't pay money to get that kind of motivation. I mean, that's just something it's awesome to be able to peg ahead of time.
I remember, I'm not sure if you know, but Kevin and I used to run an agency back in the day, and it was mostly web design and development. And so we did a lot of MVPs for other companies trying to build SaaS products. So they would come to us for like version 1 of the software, and often they weren't technical themselves. But that was a big challenge because they came often with some money, so it was good, just for the finances, right? But
yeah.
Whatever their SaaS product was, it was just not interesting. It was like something nobody on the team would ever use themselves. And that was really hard to, I think, keep them motivated on building something that didn't, like, it didn't, if you were on, Shark Tank, you wouldn't give them the money, right?
If I may interject here too, and a question I have pertaining to this, Mike, are most of your clients local or in that region?
Yeah, good question. And actually, they're not. I would say about maybe like 15-20% of our clients are in the Portland metro area, but the rest are all spread out throughout the states. We actually have a couple clients overseas as well in kind of Southeast Asia. So we're kind of all over.
That's excellent, because then you don't depend on the local economy like we did with Headspace. Pretty much, we couldn't pick and choose as much as we wanted to. So hearing you say that, you took a vote, I mean, what a great way to approach it. Very fresh way. And I wish we had the luxury of being able to do that back in the day. We never did.
Yeah. And I would say also, I mean, the big thing is like, I don't want to like downplay this isn't an easy thing to do.
No, it's not.
And, I've been incredibly lucky throughout my career. And actually, going back to what we started speaking about in the earlier part of this conversation is like, I did a lot of public speaking and blogging. Like, I figured out that I kind of had a passion for it. And really, I mean, if I hadn't done that, there's no way I would have been able to get away with this crap. Fortunately, I kind of have, this reputation that I'm able to rely on to get leads in the door. And make it so that I kind of have a bargaining chip to be able to do that. And also being a distributed team without an office, like, that's another thing that, like, if we had office space and like that was a cost that we had to pay monthly, like, we would not be able to pass on clients that weren't a good fit. Things would be a little tighter and it would be a lot trickier.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, you say that too, but I mean, people are generally way more expensive than office space, right? Like, office space tends to make only a small percentage of your monthly nut to crack. It's the people and the salaries and whatnot. So, I mean, have you ever gotten to, I'm curious if you guys have gotten to a point where you got out, vote. Let's say you wanted to work with a client. Your team says no for whatever reason, but you see that it's like lucrative, or maybe they're bringing, a lot of money up front that's just going to help the business from a cash flow perspective. Do you have veto power, or do you really stick to the democratic way of doing it?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. It's something I can I'll kind of lay out exactly what the vote results kind of impact and how we kind of view those. So really, I mentioned they're voting across these 3 criteria, scale of 1 to 5. If the voting average is more than 3, basically 3.0 average, we actually will go back to the client and be like, hey, here's why we have this voting process in place. We don't think that your business is, we don't think that you're a bad business, but you're not the right fit for us. And we want to kind of make sure that we're going to put you in good hands and find somebody who's going to be able to work with you and take care of you and kind of maybe be a better fit than we will. But if it is, 3.1 or more, we'll take that business. And then actually on the far other end of the spectrum, if a client comes back and they have a 4.5 or greater average, that just, of course, means the team is super stoked. We actually give them a discount on their services. So we apply a 15% discount to those clients. And I think the highest we've ever had is 4.67 for a client. And so we're happy to give them a discount. Of course, going back to the conversation earlier, like if the team is stoked and happy about working on the client, like that's a great business decision to maybe sacrifice a little bit of that payment for team happiness.
Are you comfortable sharing who that awesome client is? I'm sure they would love to hear that.
Yes. So that client is appropriately enough. They're called Culture IQ, and they're a company that is geared towards measuring and improving company culture. So we got that lead, and I was like, I want this client more than anything, and I hope the team wants this client. So I put up that vote, and it was actually someone who we had worked with previously at another company. So she reached back out and was like, we loved working with you guys. We'd love to work with you again. So we sent out that poll, kind of told the team what the company was about. Like they're trying to measure and improve the stuff that we care about, which is having a really positive company culture. And so they got our highest vote to date, and so we were happy to throw them a discount on their services.
That's awesome. I bet they like that.
Yeah, they were super stoked about it. And of course, speaking to people who are all like company culture nerds, they were like, this is the best idea ever. I wish everybody did this. So It was great to have that level of enthusiasm. But going back to the other side of the spectrum once more, we have turned down 3 potential good clients financially at this point because of basically people voting that it wasn't a good fit. And I haven't had the occasion to try to pull the CEO card and be like, hey, so you guys weren't super interested in this, but we're going to do it anyway. I have included a caveat to our team that generally, if we vote 3 or lower on our client vote, we're not going to work with that client unless it's a situation where the company is literally going to go under if we don't take this client. In that case, I don't think that's going to be a crazy ask to the team to be like, hey, we're in a tight financial spot, so we're going to work with this client and do that.
They'd rather keep their jobs.
Yeah, I think so. At the end of the day, we got to be real.
Yeah, well, it doesn't sound like you guys are anywhere close to that, so that's good.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, thanks for sharing that story with us. It's a very interesting way to kind of, or different, very different cultural thing to do within your company. And it sounds like you guys are just killing it. So thanks so much for being on the show, Mark. I almost did it again, Mike.
Yeah, no problem. I'm so happy to just be able to geek out about doing company stuff, meet an agency. It's great. I love. You guys have that experience of being an agency, and now you create a tool that's great for agencies. So it's exactly what I'd like to talk about all day. So
yeah,
happy to be here.
For any agency owners or people in marketing agencies that want to learn a little bit more about the technical side of things and some more maybe in-depth SEO stuff that you've produced, is there anywhere that we can send them or any links we can put in the show notes?
Yeah, definitely check out our blog. We've kind of been on a little hiatus. It's this funny problem. It's you have no right to complain, but we've had too much growth and too many new leads coming in to be able to blog for the past couple months. But we are starting a regular blogging schedule again with some pretty cool stuff coming down the pipe. So upbuild.io/blog is going to be a good place. And then actually, both myself and our director of strategy just recently put up posts on Moz.com. Moz is an SEO software company based out of Seattle, and they have a really phenomenal industry blog on SEO. And so we guest post there from time to time. So we have a couple posts up there that I can kind of pass on the links to if any listeners want to kind of see some of the geeky technical marketing stuff that we talk about.
If you guys are getting a guest post accepted on Moz.com, that speaks to the fact that you know your shit.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any more respected SEO resource on the web than Moz. So, man, kudos to you guys. Definitely send us those links.
Will do.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your day in Portlandia, and thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Thanks so much, Kyle and Kevin. It was my pleasure.
All right, take care, man.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Agencies Drinking Beer. If you enjoyed it, we'd appreciate it if you rate and or review us on the iTunes Store. If you have a story or lesson to share with other agency owners and managers from around the world, hit us up. Just email Kyle or Kevin at proposify.biz. And also, if you write business proposals and you want to make that process a whole lot easier and more streamlined, check out proposify.biz and sign up for a free 30-day trial. Cheers!